The last thing my son said to me before he stopped breathing was, "Mama, someone's coming." He was 8 years old. He had a fever of 104. I thought he was delirious. I thought it was the kind of thing a sick child says when his body is burning and his mind is reaching for something to hold on to. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about almost everything that happened in the next 6 minutes and 40 seconds. And I have spent the last 4 years trying to figure out how to tell you what I am about to tell you. My name is Sandra Whitmore. I am a middle school art teacher in Knoxville, Tennessee. I have been teaching for 16 years. I am not a doctor. I am not a prophet. I am not someone who sought this out. I am someone who made grilled cheese for dinner the night before my son almost died, who had a vegetable garden in the backyard that needed weeding, who went to church on Sundays not out of burning conviction, but because that is what my family did, and I had never had a reason to do otherwise. I am the most ordinary person I know. I say that not out of false modesty. I say it because what Caleb came back carrying was not meant for someone extraordinary. I think it was meant for someone like me, so that people like you would hear it. Caleb was 8 years old when it happened, 3rd grade. He collected rocks. He liked dinosaurs and hated math homework and had never once, in 8 years of life, watched the news. He did not know what Congress was. He understood the word election only as when adults go vote for someone. He had no political vocabulary. None. He was a child. That matters. Please hold on to that because it is the reason everything he came back saying is impossible to dismiss. It started with what I thought was the flu. High fever for 2 days, 101 the first night, 103 by the second morning. I was monitoring him. I know how to take care of a sick child. I had already called his pediatrician. I had an appointment for that afternoon, a Tuesday afternoon in February. Nothing about those 2 days felt like an emergency. It felt like winter. It felt like a sick week. It felt like something I had handled before. I made him toast that morning. He was in his bed. I called his name and he didn't answer. I walked down the hall and I opened his door and I saw him and I knew. I do not know how I knew, but I knew before I touched him. He was not moving in the way that sleeping children don't move. He was not moving in a different way entirely. I called his name. Nothing. I touched his shoulder. His skin was so hot it shocked my hand. I called 911 and I told them what I was looking at, and I followed every instruction the dispatcher gave me, and I remember almost none of it because the part of my brain that processes memory had been replaced entirely by the part that was bargaining with God. The paramedics told me later it was bacterial sepsis, an infection that had been growing quietly while I was monitoring a fever and making toast and scheduling a pediatrician appointment. His heart stopped in the ambulance. He was in cardiac arrest for 6 minutes and 40 seconds by the time they revived him. I know that number precisely because I have read his medical chart enough times that I could recite it in my sleep. 6 minutes and 40 seconds. That is not a near miss. That is a clinical death. The chart says so. The doctor who spoke to me in the hallway of East Tennessee Children's Hospital that February morning said to me, in words I will carry for the rest of my life, "Mrs. Whitmore, we almost didn't get him back." I was in the hallway when they brought him back. A nurse had her hand on my arm, not forcefully, just present, the way people stand beside you when there is nothing else they can do. I was holding my own elbows. I was not crying yet. I was past the place where crying is possible and into the place where the body simply waits. I did not know, standing in that hallway, that my son was watching me from somewhere above the room where his body was lying. I did not know that he could see me holding my own elbows. I did not know that the reason he chose to come back was because he couldn't leave me standing like that. He told me that later. In pieces, over weeks, the way a child tells you things, sideways, accidentally, in the middle of other conversations. He told me he saw me in the hallway. He told me I looked like I was holding myself together with my arms so that nothing would fall out. He told me he didn't want to leave me like that. But before he came back, he was somewhere else. And what he saw in that somewhere else is the reason I am sitting here telling you this today. Caleb told me he didn't know he was dead at first. He said it felt like taking off a very heavy backpack. Sudden, weightless, disorienting in the best possible way. He looked down and saw himself in the bed, and he described his own face with the detached curiosity of someone observing something mildly interesting. "It was me, Mama, but it wasn't all of me." He couldn't explain what he meant by that. He was 8. I wrote it down. He described moving toward a light, and here I want to be careful because I have heard enough descriptions of near-death experiences to know how easy it is to dismiss this part. People hear the word light and they think, of course. They think, this is the standard story. But what Caleb described was not a standard light. He said it wasn't a color. I asked him what he meant. He said, "You know how you can feel that something is good before you know what it is? It was like that, but it was a color at the same time." He was 8 years old, and that is how he described it. I have never heard an adult describe it better. He moved toward it without deciding to. That is what he said. He didn't choose to go toward it. He was drawn. And when he arrived, if arrived is even the right word, he was not afraid. He told me this many times, in many ways, over the months that followed. "I wasn't scared, Mama. I was the most not scared I have ever been." You have to understand why that stopped me, because the year before I had asked Caleb what scared him most. He had said, without hesitation, dying. He was 7 years old, and dying was what scared him most. He no longer says that. He has not said it since February 11th. What he found in that light was a presence, a figure. He called it Jesus. I asked him how he knew. I am an honest woman, and I will tell you that my first instinct was not faith. It was the instinct of someone trying to establish the facts. "How did you know, Caleb?" And he looked at me with the patience of someone who has already thought about this more than I could imagine, and he said, "Because I knew him, Mama. The same way you know someone when you walk into a room and you don't have to look at them to know they're there." He described no robes, no wounds, no dramatic appearance of the kind you see in paintings or stained glass windows. He described a presence that felt like being completely known. He said every part of him was known, including the parts he was ashamed of, even as an 8-year-old. He named them for me. The time he lied about breaking the neighbor's window. The time he was deliberately cruel to a boy at recess who had been unkind to him first. The time he took $1 from my purse without asking. All of it. Known. And none of it held against him. He said it felt like being loved by someone who had already read every page of the book of you and decided to love you more, not less. That is not an 8-year-old sentence. That is what I assembled from weeks of conversations with my son, slowly, the way you piece together a picture from fragments. And then Jesus showed him something. I need you to hear that sentence again. Jesus showed him something. Not about his own life, not about heaven or peace or what comes after death in the beautiful, gentle way people talk about when they want to comfort the grieving. What Jesus showed my 8-year-old son was America. Caleb described it as a screen, but a screen that was everywhere at once. He said, "It wasn't like TV, Mama. It was like TV was inside everything, and you were inside the TV." He was watching something. He was watching a country. He said he recognized it as America, though he could not tell me how he knew. He had the geographical knowledge of a 3rd grader. He just knew. And what he watched was a fracture. He said it looked like a plate breaking in slow motion. He said there was already a crack. The crack was already there. And Jesus was showing him when the crack goes all the way through. He said, "The crack was already there, Mama. He just showed me when it goes all the way through." I wrote that down on the back of a grocery receipt at 3 in the morning because I couldn't sleep and I needed to get it out of my head and onto something. I still have it. He described what he saw in the only language available to an 8-year-old. He said people stopped talking to each other. Not fighting. Stopping. He said, like when you're so mad you can't even find the words anymore. The whole country did that. He described a decision, something that was decided or something that was revealed, that caused people to separate. Not geographically. He was very clear about this. Not like states leaving or borders closing. He said it was like everyone chose a side and the sides stopped being able to see each other, as if something had been placed between them that made each side invisible to the other. He said it happens in 2026. He said Jesus told him the year. He repeated it to me 3 times in the weeks after coming home from the hospital. 2026. He did not know, at 8 years old, sitting in our house in East Knoxville eating soup I had made because he was still recovering, he did not know that the year Jesus showed him was not very far away at all. He thought it was a long time. He thought he had plenty of time to tell me. I have thought about what he described every day since he said it. I have turned it over in every direction. I have looked for the way it could be a child's confused memory, a fever dream assembled into narrative, something manageable that my frightened mind could set down. I cannot find that explanation. What I find instead, every time I look, is that the things Caleb described in those weeks have a shape, and the shape is getting more recognizable, not less. I watch the news now differently than I used to. I don't watch it for information. I watch it for the crack. I watch it the way you watch a windshield after it has been hit by a stone, looking to see how far the fracture has traveled since yesterday. And I see it. Every day, I see it getting a little wider. Not because I am looking for a reason to be afraid. Because my son was shown something, and he told me, and I am not able to unsee what he described. Caleb is 12 now. He still won't watch the news unless I'm in the room. He sits beside me on the couch, and sometimes he goes very still and very quiet, and he says, "That's part of it, Mama." He doesn't explain what part. He doesn't need to. I know what he means. He is watching the crack move. There are things he told me that he asked me not to share. I am honoring that. I want you to know that what I have told you is not everything. There are pieces of what he saw that he said were not mine to give away. He was 8 years old, and he understood that some things are kept. I am keeping them. But what I have told you, the fracture, the year, the sense of a country choosing sides in a way it cannot recover from, that he told me specifically to share. He said, "Mama," he told me someone would hear it and know what to do with it. I want you to stop for a moment. I need you to actually sit with that sentence. An 8-year-old boy was shown a vision of America fracturing in 2026 by a presence he identified as Jesus during 6 minutes and 40 seconds of clinical death. And the message he was given to carry back included the instruction that someone would hear it and know what to do with it. He did not know what YouTube was. He did not know what a channel was. He just knew someone was supposed to hear it. He came home and he told his mother, and he trusted her to carry it to wherever it was supposed to go. I have not been a brave person in my life. I am a person who shows up, who does the work, who loves her son and tends her garden and goes to church on Sundays. I am not someone who goes looking for a platform. I am here because Caleb asked me to be, and because I promised him I would tell someone, and because 2026 is here. It is not coming, it is here. And whatever he saw, whatever that fracture looks like when it goes all the way through, I believe people should be given the chance to be awake to it before it happens, rather than surprised by it after. What I came to understand in the months and years of carrying this is that Caleb's vision was not a warning in the way that warnings are usually given. It was not, "Do these 5 things to prevent it." The crack is already there. He was shown the timing, not the cure. He was shown when, not how to stop it. I asked him once, directly, "Did Jesus say what we're supposed to do?" He thought about it for a long time. Then he said people who paid attention would know, and people who didn't wouldn't. I have sat with that for years. People who paid attention would know. Know what? Know what to do? Know how to hold on to each other across whatever divide the fracture creates? Know how to stay human when the country stops being able to see itself whole? I don't know. But I know that paying attention is where it starts. I know that walking around with your eyes closed, convincing yourself that what you're sensing isn't real, is not preparation. It is surrender in advance. I believe you found this video because you are already paying attention. I believe something in you recognized the crack before you could name it. You have felt it in conversations with people you've known for decades that have turned suddenly strange. In the way the news doesn't shock anymore, it just confirms. In the way you look at the country and see something you couldn't have described 5 years ago, but can feel now with a clarity that frightens you. That is not paranoia. That is information. My son was shown what that information is pointing toward. This week, I am not going to ask you to build a bunker or buy supplies or prepare for some specific material collapse. What I am going to ask you to do is something smaller and harder than any of that. I want you to pay attention to the crack this week, specifically. Watch one conversation in your life with a neighbor, a family member, someone you've disagreed with, and watch whether the sides can still see each other or whether something invisible has already been placed between you. Watch for the moment when someone stops arguing and simply stops. When they look at you as if you are from somewhere they can no longer reach. Caleb described a country that stopped fighting and started being unable to find each other. Watch for that. It is closer than most people want to admit. And then I want you to do one more thing. I want you to reach towards someone on the other side of whatever crack is in your life. Not to convince them, not to win, just to reach. Because whatever is coming in 2026, and I believe something is coming, I believe my son was shown something real. The people who will hold together are not the people who were right. They are the people who reached. If you are watching this, I don't know your name. I don't know what your life looks like. But I know that whatever brought you here is not random. My son was 8 years old, clinically dead for 6 minutes and 40 seconds, and he came back with a specific year and a specific vision and the instruction that someone would hear it and know what it was for. If you have watched this to the end, if something in what I've shared has felt like recognition, like something you already knew but hadn't heard said out loud, then I think you might be someone who is supposed to be here. If this testimony reached you, I would ask you to subscribe to this channel. Not for me, because there are more stories like Caleb's. There are more people who came back carrying things they were told to carry. And I believe you are someone who needs to hear them, who is willing to carry what you hear, and who understands that paying attention is not the same as being afraid. It is the opposite of afraid. It is the thing we do when we have decided to stay awake. And in the comments, I want to ask you something specific. Caleb told me that the people who paid attention would know. I want to know what you're paying attention to. Not politically, I'm not asking for that. I'm asking, where in your life do you already see the crack? Where have you already noticed people becoming unable to see each other? Write it. Not for me, for yourself. Because sometimes the act of naming what you're seeing is the first step toward knowing what to do with it. Caleb is 12 years old, and he sits beside me on the couch when the news is on, and sometimes he reaches over and takes my hand. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't need to. He came back from somewhere else, and he brought a piece of it with him. And that piece lives in our small house in East Knoxville, between a vegetable garden and a collection of rocks he no longer adds to. He came back for me. But he told me the vision wasn't for me alone. So here I am, giving you what he gave me. Whatever is coming, and something is coming, something with a shape and a year and a crack that was already there before any of us noticed. I hope this reaches you in time, and I hope you are not watching alone.